Welcome, one and all, to this Gridiron Hub live broadcast. The keener eye, the ones of you and the punctual ones would have seen my lovely guests disappear, but they will be back in a moment. My name is Victor Amzi, and today I am presenting a podcast to discuss the Colin Kaepernick debate in the wake of everything that's gone on, should I say. I think all of us in this social media age would have seen the social waves going around all around the globe, um, on the black issues, and a lot of issues going on at the moment. Things are quite tense. A lot is going on, but we're all blessed to be involved in a wonderful sport that allows us to kind of mimic this crazy world that we live in and kind of vent. If not for COVID and the rest of that, we would be in the thick of a lovely Britball season and be enjoying that. But at the moment, we've got time to kind of deliberate and go over things. And I was lucky enough to be involved in a podcast to discuss the Kaepernick debate. I will call it for this previously. And yeah, for those of you who haven't listened to it, I will post a link in the chat. And yeah, we went over the whole issue of him kneeling during a US national anthem. Um, the rights, the wrongs, different opinions. And it is a debate purely because the guy made the choice and he's had to live by that choice now. A lot of us in his shoes may have probably done something different. Many might have done the same, but again, he's given us so much food for thought, and I'm guessing a lot of people's opinions of the guy and his choices may have varied in the light of everything that's gone on. But yeah, today I've got some lovely special guests that have agreed to come on and speak about American football culture in and around the Kaepernick debate, just as a focal point and something that everyone's kind of aware of and probably has an opinion on, and bring it back to our wonderful sport of Britball and look at the culture of Britball and where that's going, what needs to happen, what needs to change, what needs to improve, or whether or not we're in the right place and we're going on well. So I will bring my guests in and I will ask them one by one to take the stage and introduce themselves. And all I'd really like as an introduction, my lovely guest, is a thumbs up first if you can hear me. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Excellent, excellent. And all I'm going to do is just get you to introduce who you are, playing and coaching experience. Give me one experience where football coach has impacted your life, be it positive or negatively. Your opinion on the Kaepernick issue and whether, what it was when it started and whether or not he deserves to be where he is at the moment. And I'll do some quick fire questions afterwards. I'll recap those. There's quite a lot to remember off head, but going first, as he was here first, Mr. Phil Demont. I will unmute you, and you can introduce yourself to the lovely people.
Hey, Victor, Phil DeMonte here. I've been coaching for a long time. Currently, I'm coaching at the Oxford Brooks Panthers and with the Oxford Saints.
Excellent, excellent. Playing experience and coaching experience.
Coaching, oh wow, everything from local clubs here in the UK up to GB under 19. Had a dalliance with that. Coached youth, coached senior, coached university. Been around a while,
Awesome. And playing yourself, did you play much?
Playing, yeah, I stopped playing when I was a kid in New York, but when I came back over to the UK, I started playing when I was stationed at RF Greenham Common with a local team, the Newbury Bandits.
Excellent, excellent. And a quick comment on football culture and your experience of the way football's impacted your life.
Well, when I first came over here, there was only allowed 2 Americans to each team. I mean, we had a base where there was about about 1,500 Americans. But in fact, I had to sit part of my first season with Newbury because we had about 3 or 4 Americans who wanted to be on the roster. So I started to help coach them. And when the players got injured, and I jumped in about halfway through the season.
Excellent, excellent. So generally over here, it's been a rocky road. But what about back in the States? Did you play much in the States, or did you experience the sport
Actually,
over there?
my high school didn't have a football team, but
No way.
what is that movie about the guy that played for the Eagles?
Uh,
And
that's actually my team. I'm sad I don't know that.
we used to play football in the streets, full contact in the streets.
Was it Mark Wahlberg, the Mark Wahlberg film?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. That's how we used to play football.
What was the name of the film?
It's you're talking about Bedford Tyler.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I can't. But the player you're
Yes,
talking
yes.
about
Excellent,
Bedford
That
Tyler.
excellent.
that's how we used to start playing. But we also played in the park with helmets and shoulder pads. But we didn't have much coaching. At the old
Wow.
boys club, though, we played two-hand touch in the league.
So you would die hard, you got stuck in and just got on with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's
In
good. That's
in
good.
in the though, however, we used to play flag, and that was rough.
Awesome. I know. I can imagine. I can imagine. Got mouthpieces or no mouthpieces?
Mouthpieces. Oh yeah, you had to wear a mouthpiece.
Okay,
to play
good stuff.
the
Dental care is expensive, yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, so you were on the first installment of the discussion about
Mhm.
Kaepernick, and we had a nice debate about it. For as a recap, could you just give us a little bit of a flavor of the vibe that you were feeling back then when we was talking about it? I think that was last year, mid last year.
I mean, I had no issue with him taking a knee. That's his right. That's his privilege. I spent 11 years in the American Air Force. My son was a combat vet. He was a Purple Heart winner. He had no issue with it. Um, my dad served. I had nephews served. My brother served. And the thing is, and that's a right and a liberty that we have in the U.S. to protest. Now,
Excellent.
my only concern about that was maybe he could have taken that protest. He was in San Francisco. He could have taken a knee in downtown San Francisco. He could have taken a knee also in Vegas. He had that right to protest. I had no issue about him taking a knee during the anthem, but I think he could have taken it further in other locations.
Cool, cool, excellent. So that's more of an issue of when he did it rather than what he actually did. And I think a lot of people do understand that issue in general, and his choice to make the quite a drastic choice to take the anthem, which is so sacred, and again a moment of respect to then kind of show a moment of not rebellion, but make a statement, so to speak.
You
It's
know,
like talking while an anthem's playing. It is a big statement.
the,
Okay,
the,
cool.
there's a lot about America. I mean, it's not just the anthem. It's about holidays. It's about family. It's about it's just not America. America is just not one song. America is a lot of different things,
I
and
hear
people
that definitely.
people hold certain things sacred. The anthem's an anthem. It's a
Hmm.
song.
Excellent, excellent. All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot now. Gonna ask you some quick fire questions for people that are watching to kind of get a
Mhm.
flavor of kind of where you're at. Like, don't think about it too much. Just kind of
Okay,
hit me, yeah. All right. So, what is more important, the thrower or the catcher?
the thrower.
I love it. I love it. Okay. All right. What's more valuable quality, experience or talent?
Ooh, experience.
Debatable, debatable. People are welcome to reply in the comments, by the way. These are all very contentious questions for a reason. All right. Um, what's more valuable, a player that can adapt or a player that can prepare well?
A player that can prepare well.
Hmm, interesting. And what kind of player do you feel would be more coachable? A player that's hypersensitive or a player that's hyperactive?
Hypersensitive.
Okay,
They would
excellent.
better to coaching.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, Phil, thank you for that. Right, introducing my second guest that arrived to see me tonight, Mr. L. Perkins.
Well, what's up?
All right, could you give us a flavor of your playing experience and your coaching experience with the wonderful sport that is American football?
Yeah, let's see. Started out high school. Probably was a better track and field athlete. I always considered that my better sport. Um, Went to university on a track scholarship originally at Virginia, and from there walked on. And walked on there, and there was a guy by the name of Tiki Barber who was ACC Freshman of the Year that happened to play the same position I did. So I kind of realized my football future wasn't really going to be there. So I transferred about an hour to go to James Madison University and just finished off both sports there. Had a fairly good career. And then spent the next 2 years after that trying to make a NFL roster unsuccessfully. Hold on, you muted. I can't hear you.
Yeah, yeah, I'm messing around with two computers at once. That's rookie errors. So you got quite close. You got a good flavor of getting close to the professional game and what it takes to kind of be that. What they say is 1% actually make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about your experience with American football culture then, as you got so close to the big leagues and you obviously mixed with a lot of players that didn't make it to be, in that clientele?
Man, I mean, it's the culture of American football is probably one of the things I like the best. Just from a young age, you're talking about you take some young kids from the age of 8 all the way up to the high school age that you go in and camp and the dog days of August and you suffer together and you build that camaraderie and that brotherhood. And that's literally, I always tell to my students because I'm in education now, and I always say to my students, still some of the biggest life lessons I learned during that 2 weeks of summer camp in football. You learn how to suffer, you learn how to work together as a team, you're accountable, all the big lessons. It teaches you so much. So I'm a big fan of that. That's my biggest part that I love about American football culture is the suffering together and the bonding of brotherhood and the working together to make something happen.
Excellent, excellent. That's going to be very vital later on when we start talking more about how that can come over here to the UK and the sport can kind of stimulate that growth, in UK society and sporting community. All right. So your opinions when the whole Kaepernick debate kicked off. I think it was 2016 August when it all started to flare up, and the
Yeah.
media were questioning him sitting down. What were your thoughts at the time, and how did you kind of, I say deal with it? I guess everyone kind of had a way of dealing with it, either talking to people about it, reading about it. What were you doing around that time then? Where
Man,
were you when he sat down?
man, I watched it. I was quite fascinated with it. Um, I think Black Americans have a funny, not funny. It's a almost a weird relationship with America because I love being American. I love my country. And I love everything that it represents. I love the idea of America and equality and given the chance to take nothing and with hard work be able to last something. Then again, on the other foot, you look at the history of what's happened. I look at my grandfather. I'm not a military person, but my grandfather's Korean War vet, and I'm also from the South. So you're talking about the fact that when he came home from killing and being shot at in Korea, he couldn't wear his uniform in Virginia. He may have had something happen to him. You know, so you have this country, and I would say, maybe I can't speak for everybody, but you have a lot of Black Americans feel just the way that I do. We love our country, but it's really sad to not feel loved back by our country sometimes. If I
So
can
could you
say that
can
in a
could you
nutshell.
understand why he took the risk of making such a statement? Then you can kind of
Yes,
sympathize with it.
100%.
Okay. How did you feel about him going from sitting on the bench to then taking a knee and actually kind of trying to show a certain level of respect, but still making that controversial statement?
I felt like he was going to pay for it because I know I didn't think the powers that be, the good old boys club that is the NFL ownership, I didn't think they were going to like it, and I thought that he was going to pay for it, which he of course did. So that part with him essentially being blacklisted from the NFL was not a surprise to me. I saw that one coming a mile away, but I applaud his courage and the fact that he was willing to put it up on the line because I think he felt like he knew it was going to happen as well.
And now, obviously, fast forward to 2020 with all that's happened. I do mark obviously the George Floyd situation where again he was knelt on, so to speak, to which end his life. How do you kind of process how Kaepernick could possibly be feeling and should really be treated right now, if there is a should or would or could? Like, where do you think things should be at now with like kind of looking at that situation and possibly kind of focusing on young Black Americans that want to make statements?
Man, I feel like um, if he was a less weighty person, if I can use that as an adjective, he would have been like, I told you so. But I don't think that's his personality. I think, he looked at that kind of situation. He looked at what happened with Floyd and, he was, shocked and saddened as most of us were. I don't think he took any kind of happiness in saying, well, I
It
told you
wasn't
so. I was
something to
right.
celebrate. Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the magnitude of it was massive. All right, cool, cool, cool. All right, and yeah, take the heat down a little bit. I'm gonna ask you some quick fire questions. All right, you
All
ready, sir?
right.
All
Go
right,
for it.
I want to see you shoot quick. All right, who is more important to the team, the captains or the committee?
Captain.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. That was my vibe still. All right, the most valuable to a team in this day and age. A great website or a great mailing list?
Oh God, that's a
Quick.
new age question. Website.
Great website. Okay, okay, okay. The most valuable trait, confidence or humility?
Confidence.
Hmm, interesting, interesting. All right, so what's more important, game stats or combine numbers?
Combine numbers will get you a look in the league, man.
Okay, even with no game time, even with no game stats, you
Even
think combine?
combine numbers will get you a look in.
All right, cool. Oh, and I got a nice one here. All right, the clock stopped. Got 3 seconds left in a half. You're the coach. You're the calling the shots. You're 5 points down, and you got the ball on the opponent's 3 yard, five. You got the ball on the opponent's 5 yard line. Again, you got one play before the half on the opponent's 5 yard line. You're 5 points down. What'd you do? Did you kick it or did you go for the six? Well, the seven.
Back shoulder fade quarter the end zone. Go up for six.
Trust your players. I love it. I love it. Kicker can stay on the bench. Excellent, excellent. All right, so I'm gonna put you on mute now. Introduce my other guests. Thank you for being here. I'll get back to you very, very soon. Awesome. All right, Mr. Ayub, welcome, welcome, welcome. Same scenario for you, sir. Can you introduce yourself to the lovely people, playing experience and coaching experience first, sir?
Well, most of you guys probably know me as Rick Ayub. It's good to see Phil DeMonte and Earl Perkins there. So good evening to you guys. I've been involved in football since 1982. I played up until 1989, 1990, and then went into coaching. First youth, helping out some local teams, and then continued to coach with the team that I played for, which was the London Olympians. Got involved in that seriously, and then from end of 94, 95 became head coach of the GB squad. So did that and the Olympians for the next sort of 11 to 17 years, something like that. And just been involved in football, and just got involved back again with the Olympians, and involved with a thing called Share the Knowledge, which is about spreading football and getting coaches to speak to each other, and that's proven to be successful. So that's kind of my football. It's in my blood now.
Awesome, awesome. So it sounds like you're definitely in there with the culture shift and embracing obviously the culture of American football. All right, next question. What can you give me a moment that stands out for you that represents everything that's good about footballing culture?
For me, that's just very, very easy. 1994, Finland, semi-finals of the European Championship, 6 minutes, 42 seconds left to play. We're losing by 3 touchdowns. And that taught me it's not the time you have left, it's what you do with that time, because we walked away winners. And we went straight to the final and won that, and that was history. But it was all about you stick together, you use your time the best way you can, and results will take care of themselves. So that in life for me was a lesson, how to use time.
I think that sounds like a life mantra in one event, man. That's beautiful. And again, I've got a lot of experiences with American football as well that hopefully we can get into and share later. And some of which were shared with you, sir. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was all good, so good. Right, Kaepernick, what were your thoughts and feelings when it all started to flare up? And even when it came over here, because I know the London series games were over here and it was all flaring up on our shores as well. Reporters were running to the games more for that than to actually watch the sport. So
Yeah.
what were you feeling in and around the time when this was all going on?
Listen, race is a huge thing, and to be able to talk about race is very, very difficult, because people are going to agree with you, disagree with you. You may not have the vocabulary to be able to express yourself. And I try not to be political, but I am a person that has been a victim of race. I've been around race, and unless you've been around that, you don't always appreciate it. There are even today, if you walk into a place where somebody doesn't like you because of the color of your skin, you sense it. And that's hard to explain to somebody, but you do sense it. So my thing with Colin Kaepernick, and I try never to be political if I can, because it leads you into all kinds of debates. But what else was he supposed to do? If he believed in it, and he believed in it strongly, and its color and his people and everything that's going on in the States, and race in the States is very different. Racism in the States is very different from racism in the UK. You know, we have it in small pockets. They have it in bigger pockets. So what was he supposed to do? And people turn around and say things like he disrespected, he did this and the other. My view is very simple on this. He did the most extreme thing he could to get his point across at the venue he felt at home at to do so. People are not going to like that. People are going to have their different views. I don't like people manipulating the whole thing that he was against the flag, he was against the military, this, that, and the other. People do that so they can argue against what he did. That was 2016. I would say that somebody else who came to notoriety that year has done more in the last 4 years to damage America than Kaepernick did. That's and again, I don't want to get political, but
Amen,
you
amen.
know,
I know
if
exactly what you're
so
saying.
so there's a lot of so my view is that, and I guess I'm that kind of character. If I'm going to protest, I'm not going to pick and choose a venue. I'm going to do it where I'm comfortable, right? And sometimes it just happens. It comes out, you know, there's nothing you can do. Now, so that's my view on it. My view on it is that, hey, what he's talking about, I don't think a sane person disagrees with. People will argue how he went about it and this, that, and the other. My personal feeling is, hey, his organization must have known about it, because you look at the reaction of the people around that. He shared that with some people. Nobody stopped him, and he didn't want to be stopped. And who has he hurt? Was it violent? Who has he hurt?
So fast forward to 2020, where we are now. Obviously, in light of what you said about and certain other persons' damage to the states, what do you feel? I say Kaepernick deserves. It's not a matter of deserving, because obviously everything that's happened to bring more light to the whole issue and the struggle that we're talking about is, something that doesn't need to be inflamed any more than it is. I think with the advent of social media and technology, everyone's kind of seeing it for real now. It's just it's in everybody's faces. These things have been happening for a long time. We're just seeing it more because, it's out there. What do you feel now, in the light of what you're saying about, making a stand and being someone who, uses your platform, if you would like to? What do you feel needs to be done now in regards to Kaepernick's issue? Maybe other people in his position that have the potential to kind of use that power, even though it is very blanket done now. People are doing it because they know they can do it, and they should do it if they want. What do you think now? Kaepernick himself how he should be treated, and people like him should, go forward in making their statements.
Well, Kaepernick's going to be treated a pariah because the money people didn't like what he did. Okay, I mean, I think we've got to accept the fact money people didn't like it, and the people who would have wanted to suppress his thoughts didn't like it. He put his career on the line, and he has no career. He has no career. And I think for any sane person, you can look at, because hindsight's a great thing. Well, this isn't hindsight. We've witnessed this. We can now say in the last 4 years, he has paid a penance for what he did. And he's been proven right. He's been proven right in many of the events that are going on. And what he deserves, what every man deserves in his life is peace. In terms
Exactly.
of where he is, he's a catalyst. He chose to do it. Muhammad Ali, sort of, I'm a great fan of. He shook the world. I think Kaepernick, not in the same. I can't say in the same context because Ali was different, but Kaepernick, in his own way, has made the world pay attention
Amen.
across different sports. And
Amen.
and
Amen.
and and what's really unfair about this whole situation, as far as I'm concerned, I think there's black, white, indifferent, purple, blue people that all agree, but they don't have a platform to be able to express it in the right way.
I think he's probably, I think that word you said about peace and him finding his peace, it's weird because he was essentially right and ahead of his time in what he chose to do and where he chose to do it. Because I'm watching the Premier League now, and before games, everyone's kneeling down, and I'm thinking to myself, "Wow, this guy was chastised for having the foresight to say, look, I'm taking a stand now. I don't care what everyone around is doing." And he did it. So like obviously he's in his heart of hearts. He knows he can say as many "I told you so's" till the day that he dies. But the fact that someone had to die in the way they did for him to suddenly be brought back out of this condemnation black closet, it's foul and it's awful, and he can never really, as an honest human being that wants peace, celebrate a situation like that it's taken to justify his position. But I know obviously Nike have taken him on as an ambassador. I'm sure that he's probably welcome to speak in any room, in any forum now. Any country of the world would probably take him to speak. But whether or not he does that or
Well,
uses that platform,
well, Vic, what's he done wrong? What has he
exactly.
actually done wrong?
Exactly that,
Do
but
you
this
know
is
what
the
I mean?
reason why we're here talking about it now.
You
Because
know,
in doing something that was chastised, he was actually doing essentially something that was right. And if we look through history of different struggles and different international policies and things that have happened in retrospect, we can look at decisions that big major players and circles and institutions have made and look back and see, hold on, someone stood up against that and they were laughed at or they were mocked, they were got rid of, they were pushed to one side. But now we realize that person was right. But again, yeah, go ahead.
I, yeah, I just don't have a pro. I have more of a I have a more of a problem if we're going to talk about soccer over here. Seeing 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 certain gentlemen wearing white T-shirts that say Black Lives Matter, and I
Yeah.
know in their past lives what they were
Oh,
involved
don't,
with.
don't,
So
don't, don't.
we just got to understand that
Mm,
history is
mhm.
always written, and you can't change
Yes.
it. You can change
Mm.
the future, and
Amen.
if you hang on to your angst from
Mm.
before, you don't move forward.
Amen.
And so for me, like I said,
Mm.
if I ever got the opportunity, because this is a small world, to
Mm.
meet him, I would be happy to meet him.
Take my jersey and get it signed, please, 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 please. Thanks. But yeah, it's this is what I'm saying. So this podcast obviously begins with the whole Kaepernick situation, but my energy from that, I didn't want it to be about the politics and about what happened with this. I wanted it to be about then spinning it to obviously UK Britball and how we're in a position now to look at a beautiful institution of sport that is American football, and now we're kind of welcoming it into our hearts and our minds. And again, even hearing Earl talk about the sport and the process he went through at a young age, playing the sport and almost getting to a professional level with it, it's clearly got him to a position where like he is passionate about learning about life and the fight that is the sport. Anyway, let me line it up a little bit, sir. I've got some quick fire questions for you. Right.
Make them good ones.
All right. What would you prefer in a player? Heart or focus?
Heart.
Okay, okay, okay. Another. What's the more valuable trait? Loyalty or honesty?
Well, that's one and the same, isn't it?
And well, you have to pick one slant, sir. They are one and the same,
Honesty.
but
Honesty.
honesty. Excellent, excellent. Oh, and this is a physical one. Preferred attribute in a player: acceleration or speed?
Oof. Oof. Okay. See, now normally I would get you to break that down for me, right? But
It's a very
I,
breakdownable one,
for
but I want people to
right
open their
for
minds
me,
to the one
for
side.
me it's acceleration.
Excellent, excellent. We
To be
could
able
talk
to
about
move
we could
quickly.
talk for ages about that one. But
Uh,
anyway, next one. All right. What would you prefer? A win where both teams scored over 30 points, or a win where both teams scored less than 15 points?
Me winning.
Yeah, but you've won them both. But what would you prefer? A high scoring game
Don't care.
or a low
Don't
scoring
care.
game?
Win.
All right, win. All right. Scenario question. All your running backs are crocked and you're injured. They're injured. Your second string QB is in, and it's a wet and wild day. Essentially, you got to run the ball. Yeah. Who do you put in, your sturdy tight end or your speedy wide receiver? Quick fire
I
questions.
get
Speed or acceleration?
it'd be the wide receiver.
Wide
It'd be the
receiver.
wide receiver. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Again, I ask these questions because again, they could all be podcasting themselves. The sport is amazingly diverse, and yeah, we're here to kind of promote this sport and how it can affect our wonderful British culture and Britball. Right, Mr. Rayub, I'm gonna put you on mute for a second. I missed out Mr. DeMonte's scenario question, so I'm gonna get you back involved, Mr. DeMonte. Your scenario
Okay.
question. I missed it out, so I'm gonna ask you your scenario question. Right.
Cool.
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Right, 2 minutes on the clock. You've just scored a
Mhm.
touchdown. That means that if you kick the PAT,
Mhm.
you draw the game. If you go for two, you're a point ahead. 2 minutes
Mhm.
on the clock, what do you do? PAT.
I would kick.
Ah,
I'd kick the PAT and then
you're
go for
giving
an
it away.
onside
Don't-
kick
Just
to
the
recover.
PAT, we'll leave it there. Everyone else can think about what happens after. Excellent, sir. All right, you're a safe guy, yeah? Okay, you don't want to live on the
Okay.
wild side. Excellent, excellent. All right, cool. Amen. 2 minutes is a long,
So
long
two
time.
minutes.
All right. Okay, so moving it on, moving it on. So, in regards to culture, then we're talking about obviously all the issues that's going on. Um, in Britball, we're seeing a lot of teams. I call them teams lightly. End of the day, these teams could eventually be institutions in themselves if the sport picks up the way it really should. We got the academies at Bristol, and we've got the NFL academy. Essentially, we can one day have an NFL team here, and again, the Bristol team could be a big major player in the structure that they've already set up. So for me, again, you're all unmuted. You can all jump in when you want. When you're talking about a team culture, then how and where does that work? So for me, I'll just drop it to my 2 cents in. I feel that like the team culture is coach led, but very much player driven. So it's all well and good, you know, a coach pointing out a direction that they want the team to go in and, you know, what they want to happen. But if the players obviously don't buy in, if the players don't fit the personality of what he wants for the team, people are going to see this team on the sideline. People are going to see this team perform, and they're going to think, "Oh man, hold on a minute, what's going on in that camp?" Because they're not respectful on the sideline. They don't treat their opponents with respect. But at the same time, we're playing a sport where you don't necessarily have to treat your opponents with respect. So with all that kind of dust that I've just thrown in the air, you're welcome to step in, any one of you, to kind of give your kind of perspective on what team culture really means and how it's created and nurtured.
Well, you need to sell your vision of what you want for that team, and the team has got to buy in on that, right? You might be a coach that might be calm and rational. You might be like me, a lunatic on the sideline, right? You got it, but you got to sell your vision, and you got to have the buy-in from the players. And I think also part of the culture is family. You know, these guys are not professionals. They gave up their weekends, they gave up their time during the week to come to practice, right? And you need to get that family involved as well. And I think if you have and also to be honest, also the community at large. If you can get your community in large involved in the sport, then I think you have a pretty good coaching going on.
Cool, 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 cool. Anyone else? Step up, step up. Don't be shy.
Well, for me, culture um, is not what you say; it's what you do. It's what the players do. So people use this word culture, but never break it down for the team, because culture comes down to commitment, comes down to action, comes down to buying in to when you're not with the team, to doing stuff away from your team so you come back better prepared as an athlete so you can participate and take your team to the next level. So for me, culture is always about not what you say, but what you do. And by having that explained to the players and the team, your program understands that you're looking for people of action, and you get that through.
Excellent,
And,
excellent.
and if it's something that you do consistently, it's going to be something that translates on game day. I think back to Virginia football in the early 90s. The team culture was this is going to be a team that's really, really well conditioned. I think in Sports Illustrated, they did an article on our weight room, Cavalier Iron, and they said this is one of the best weight rooms on the East Coast in college football, and the team is always going to be well conditioned, going to outlive you. UVA football was never a team that was outworked back in the early 90s. You might beat us, but we're not gonna be out conditioned. We're not gonna be dragging ass in the fourth quarter. So because they had that, it was part of the team personality. And that's what we did in March and in April. It also translated by the time we got to September and October. So that was our team culture.
Excellent. Sounds like you established a certain identity with
Yeah,
your with
yeah.
the team and the personality. That's what you're saying, personality. Again, a lot of people talk about people. Personality looks like if your team looks good, your personality is in check. People are gonna instantly get that impression. That's excellent. Talking about impressions. Um, oh, I'll let you go first on this one. Were
Okay.
your impressions, or what have your impressions been of Britball since you've been in and around it? Um, what are your impressions of Britball culture?
Britball culture. I would love to see what Britball could be like if you were able to maintain a practice schedule more to what I'm akin to, or more to what I'm accustomed to. If you could get teams somehow, and I don't know how you do it, if you get them practicing 4 or 5 days a week, I wonder what the sport would look like then. Because football is not a 2 day a week practice sport. It's just not. It has to be drilled in, drilled in, drilled in, drilled in, so that actually by the time that you get to game day, you just react. I see that from watching it close up. I see a lot of thinking on the Britball field where it should be more and more reacting. So it would be really interesting to see what Britball would look like if people could practice 4 and 5 times a week.
So definitely it needs to kind of to be able to really embrace the benefits of the sport. People, it needs to become more than just the amateur sport in this country. Then you're saying it needs to
Mm.
be, properly taken into the hearts. Mr. Ayem, you're next. Britball culture for you. I've obviously seen a lot of it, many years of the different incarnations of the sport, should I say. I joined in 2008. I joined the Olympians in 2008. In I guess second, call you second era, third era of the team. Now, in terms of Britball culture, yes, Olympians are cemented in it, but as an overall general comment on the way the sport sits now and where it's been and kind of where it's at, give us a bit of a vibe of what you kind of think of Britball culture.
Well, we're still very much in our infancy as a collective. You've got satellite programs that kind of try to take it in the right direction. Picking up on what Earl said, 4 or 5 times a week, it is possible. You're not going to get all your players together at one venue 4 or 5 times, but it is possible for us to have a weight schedule that we can monitor, and athletic on the track schedule. It is
Mm.
possible for the players to do the things that they would do together if they were at college in the States. Not in its entirety, but I think we can move that direction, and that would come from the majority of football in this country taking that view, or the ones who wanted to be more professional. Certainly for the elite programs, for the national teams, there's no reason whatsoever for any player that wants to be part of the national team that he should not be focusing on American football and activities that make American football better 4 or 5 times a week. And they'd be broken up between weights and uh, um, track and study, etc. But there's no reason, and I think that's a culture that needs to be instilled.
Mm.
But it can only be instilled by people who understand and other people who buy into it. And unfortunately, at the moment, I think that there is a lot of goodwill, but not enough action.
Mm.
Definitely, I think that buy-in aspect is definitely something that sits and rings true because again, American football to play it, to get off the ground, to play kitted, it's not pick up boots and go down the park and get involved, put on a bib. It's boots, helmet, uh, kit, and pads, trying to find a team, paying subs. So it's not really a pick up and go sport because again, the rewards of doing it properly are great. You're talking about, getting getting there to the big leagues and playing an amazing sport. Mr. Demont, from your experience of Britball culture, give us a bit of a flavour of what you think, having seen obviously both sides of the pond, coached at university level, coached at senior level. Give us a bit of a vibe of what your opinions are on Britball culture.
Well, I remember back in the late 80s when I came over here, it was the guys that actually playing were more like construction workers, and they were big physical guys. Nowadays, you see more athletes, I think, playing, and I think I do see more people hitting the gym. At one of the programs I'm involved in, we're on the field 3 times a week, and the guys are actually getting together to hit the gym together. They're getting together outside of our practice schedule to run plays and having running sessions to learn the playbook. So I think that's getting better. But again, as the guys alluded to, I once played for RF Upper Hayford. It was a military team, and we were on the field 5 days a week. When we actually made the playoffs, we were assigned to the gym from noon to 6 o'clock. So we ate lunch together, we went to the gym together, then we hit the practice field together. And that is what I saw in a program as what I've seen more in the States. I haven't seen that really too much over here, but then again, it's not a professional sport. You know, the money's not in there. If the money was in the sport, then I think I'd see people's attitudes changing a bit, and it would become more on a professional level.
Definitely. And I think the last time the league was anywhere near professional, I think Budweiser was sponsoring the league. Rick, jump in when you're ready. There was a Budweiser sponsorship, and I think the games were on TV, and something was working because teams were playing and guys were able to play semi-pro-ish, fullish time-ish, and get on with it and get that done.
The unfortunate thing that happened to us in the late 80s, sort of 85, 86, 87, is, and it was naivety on the part of British American football, and more so, I think, by the people who put the money into it, who didn't do their due diligence, because the league was not run, it was at such an embryo stage to put that kind of money in without guidance, etc., etc. And people started throwing money around. They started, there was no consideration for the future. Now, I was not privy to exactly how much money. I didn't know. I just knew all of a sudden there was this big razzmatazz, and the final was held at Aston Villa and then held at Queen's Park Rangers and, these kind of stadiums. So money was just being thrown, but nothing about development, and even now, at the end of the day, we've moved since 1983 to now, and we have still some of that legacy that we're not developing. And I think that the next time money comes into the sport, we need to be prepared to develop.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a roots issue. There weren't any roots laid. I think to
No,
them go straight
it was
to go
too
straight to
early.
the senior. Yeah, to go
Yeah,
straight to the throw it at the senior teams. Play now, give us the razzmatazz, but not set up an academy, not
yeah,
get it into the curriculum in schools, not get coaches out there to get the kids watching it at the weekend thinking, oh, I did that
yeah,
in the playground last week. That would have kind of laid a bit more of a foundation to probably have more guys willing to think,
yeah,
oh, hold on a minute, I used to watch that with my dad. Let me go and have a go. Do you know what
yeah,
I mean? Obviously, soccer, the closest thing I think to the soccer culture kind of being anywhere near anything that matches America was, I think there was a massive wave of all these guys saying, oh yeah, I'm getting a soccer, like going to college, and I'm on, I think it was Protect, the scheme was called. They took a load of players, give them a 1 year contract, moved them out to whatever professional team it was, and these guys were getting kind of on the way to kind of getting into the Prem. But again, a lot of these guys were sold a dream. One injury, one bad kind of season, they were kind of kicked by the wayside. And over here, you didn't get a proper education alongside, a soccer scholarship or, academies and with teams. So I kind of going, oh, do you want to jump in a little bit more about, the Britball culture and where it needs to go?
Man, I think I think the key to the whole thing is you've got to build in schools. I really think that's the key to the whole thing as far as growing the game across the country. And I always kind of look back to how the game is structured at the high school level in America. As far as you play in a district. Once you win your district, then you play in a region. Once you win the region, then you play in a state. Their national games were really just a district, region, state, and the game is so organized. It is so well funded. It is so just structured that not only do you make fans, not only do you have participants, you have somewhere to filter into the university system. The whole thing is just connected. The infrastructure is so strong that I always thought if you could do something approaching the American infrastructure in Britain, the game would be a success. But that infrastructure literally would take it would take years to build.
Definitely, definitely. It's definitely going to have to grow over time. But yeah, those years again, it's now. It's starting now. And I
Yeah.
think to speak specifically about the organization in power, Baffa, appointing a CEO, that's accountability now. This
Yeah.
guy has a job description to get something done. And from the noise that I was hearing about membership money being allocated to flag programs, I think
Yeah.
that's an attempt at laying some sort of roots to kind of bridge this gap between the British way of doing it, the Brit Ball way, and the American way. So
Yeah.
again,
They've
there's
got to.
definitely,
That's it. They've got to get in schools. They have to. That's the key of the whole thing.
and again, I've actually been in schools on behalf of NFL UK and did some
Mm,
coaching. And again, it was weird because I was walking into this school who had been given this bag of balls, set of flags, and he
mm,
just going for it. Was in the playground, throwing these balls around. The kids were loving it. Boys,
hmm
girls, big, tall, short. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a no-brainer here. Like, why isn't it being rolled out more? And then I hear noise. Oh yeah,
hmm
they want to try get in the curriculum. They want to try get this, and then I just hear silence. And again, you've got people like shout out Jags, Jacksonville Jags. They're trying to do a little bit here, there, and
mm,
everywhere. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert on this. I'm only going by my own perspective and what I've seen and actually being
mm.
involved in it. And it does have an amazing effect. They sit in the classroom, they watch YouTube videos, they learn to write out plays, and it becomes again a subject to study, not just a sport you play and kick about in,
Yeah.
hit there and about. So again, the payback and the value added again for the taking on the sport for me is it's a no-brainer. And again, hopefully Baffa's project to kind of roll out flag and promote flag is something that's gonna have a
Mm,
lasting effect and kind of go towards those routes. So yeah, talking specifically about Baffa and Britball, where is it really gonna be realistically possible for us to make efficient steps? Again, we talked about the previous attempt with Budweiser falling flat on his face. How is it going to be done realistically, and what's the plan? How do you think, from your perspectives in the game, it's going to work and be kind of cemented a little bit better? Anyone can take their first shot at this one.
It's funny. I always believe that if you want to sell something, you need to have a product, right?
mm.
You need to have the game day experience, right? And this is what we're saying about culture and getting the family involved. You need to have, the community involved. You need to play in a facility that has decent facilities.
Aren't the London Series games a kind of demonstration of that product, where it
They,
could be?
they are, and that's how can you be? And somebody's going to shoot me in the head for this, but how can you be a premier team, but you're not playing in premier facilities?
Ah,
You know,
Okay, that's
you're
a
not
that's a valid point.
like food being sold. And a play-by-play announcer telling people what's going on. Stands. For people to sit down and not stand up and watch the game. That's what you
mm,
need. That's where you need to start. You know, then
Definitely.
the state of the play doesn't have to be the greatest on the field, but you all need to look the part though.
Mm, mm.
The
So
uniform supposed need to be the same.
so you think people buy into tangibles, things that can see, things that can embrace, things that make them feel something, yeah?
More people walk around wearing Manchester United shirts and around the world and know support Manchester United because they know the brand.
It's true.
Hmm.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
a fashion. It is a fashion statement. It is, but then soccer is a culture now. Like football jerseys are more fashion statements than actually supporting teams. People don't buy
Mm.
jerseys to put add to the coffers of the teams because they make enough money from TV money, players, etc., etc. So yeah,
Mm.
definitely. And I think
Everybody,
NFL UK are definitely trying that. I'm seeing adverts for NFL merchandise. Maybe it's targeted advertising, but NFL Europe that these things you can buy your NFL jerseys now. Like I would have never had an idea of where to get one back in when I was younger, or even thought of even buying one. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's starting to happen, and I say the London series is a definite representation of the show
Mm.
and the end product that can be there. But again, for a lot of us in the game, I think we look at that and think, wow. I think probably Americans will get over it and play in Wembley before I get to play in Wembley again. Do you know, ever? Do you know
Mm.
what I mean? So I
Mm.
think maybe I've been to the Summer Bowl with the kids' flag, and that was at a nice, prestigious facility, great facility. No stands or
Mm.
anything, but all the schools were there, like loads of schools. You're talking about, I think 600, 700 kids. Amazing day. All the kids were loving it. But I'm thinking to myself, this is nationwide. Only 500 kids come in. If every region was doing something like this and profiling it, putting videos out there, like it would definitely be something big. But yeah. Oh, Rick, do you want to jump in? Jump in.
I was
Oh,
just going to. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick.
no, no, no. Please go ahead. I wasn't going to
I
jump in.
I was just going to chime in and just agree with what Phil was saying as far as if you have a grade A product, it will sell. For the case in point, you look at Major League Soccer in the United States. Not that as far as the standards of soccer, not that great. Doesn't have great viewership. Well, it's getting better, but you put it in comparison with the Premier League, and people will watch. Even in America, people will watch Premier League because it's such a great standard of football. Case in point, if you just switch it, if you had a great American football product here, people will watch it. I think, and this might be a little bit hard to hear, the standard of play in Britball, I would see really rise. Because I mean, you could take the best team that we have here. I'm not going to call it in. You can take the best team in Britball, and you can take. You can pick a state champion from. You can pick a high school state champion and play up against the best team in Britball and the high school state champion to win by 3 touchdowns. You know. So what I'm saying, if we get that standard of football up, you're going to have a better
Yeah.
product. You have a better product, you're going to start to build the brand. You just want to start to build the sport. You're going to get what you want.
I think that's an amazing point because when I was growing up, I thought to myself, you know what, like I'm playing soccer, my under 18s team could probably go over to America and slap about a
Yeah,
high level American team, but that
yeah.
gap has been closed now. I think the American
Mm,
team did well, really well at one World Cup, and obviously America has an institution of great athletes. Skills
mm,
can be taught to athletes.
yeah,
So
yeah,
soccer, they can get in there and they can definitely do a job. They've bought into the spectacle that it is. Your David Beckhams and your big players that go over there to add a little bit more matinee to the sport have definitely grown Major League Soccer, as you say. And again, the
yeah.
businesses, the brands, they lap it up because they think, hold on a minute, we're broadcasting worldwide now. We ain't got to worry about the American
Mm,
audience, just the American audience watching. We've got
yeah,
people paying pay-per-view and paying for this, that want to buy in
yeah.
from all over the world because soccer is, it's almost a religion, really. Yeah, soccer, like as well.
Yeah, yeah,
American football's definitely close, but my RE teacher used to tell me one of the biggest religions in football in the world was football and that culture,
yeah.
like the World Cup and all the rest of that stuff. And again, the Super Bowl's definitely up there. Mr. AM, let's get
Well,
some Britball culture movements from you.
the the thing is, you made a comment about America's full of athletes. So are we. We've got athletes. You know, we don't
True.
do we don't do stuff with them. And
Mm,
I agree with Earl and Coach about having a product. But as well as being a coach, I've been a businessman for X number of years, right? And I'll tell you something now. I have seen people with great product and they don't know what the hell to do with it. Our
mm,
Mm,
problem is one, we have to recognize we operate in a country where there are 3 or 4 sports that are far more advanced than we are and institutionalized than some of the sports in European countries we have to compete against. So we need to find the level we want to get to.
mm,
We need to fix our core up and have a vision. And our core needs to see that vision through for a number of seasons and cycles. for a number of years. So we can end up with a great product but not know what to do with it. Our problem is more deep rooted than that. We need to have a vision of where we want to be and what is achievable and work towards that. And that to me would be a priority. In terms of facilities, we're absolutely stuffed, because if you look at facilities in inner cities, they're not available. Last year, when I was working with BAFA, one of the best facilities I saw was the Oxford Saints, who beautiful AstroTurf field, a 400 seater stadium, access, etc., etc. How are you going to replicate that? Back in the days, there was Ipswich Cardinals, got a beautiful stadium, 600 seater, viewpoint, etc. How many of those are there? So we have to sit down and recognize that, and people will point fingers at teams, and so on. But our problem really is that we need to have a core vision that everybody works towards. And whether that be we invest in flag football, youth football, if it's, and please understand what I'm going to say here, right? If your vision is, as collectively agreed, that you're only going to work on the senior game, then let's do that. It's not what I agree with, but if that's what your vision is, then let's do that. But if your vision is to work with youth and plant the seeds and all of that, then let's prioritize and let's do that. Let's work together. But at the same time, the hunger that is out there by kids who want to get better at this sport, let's feed them that so that we can keep going to a point where we can go ahead and capitalize when we're ready, because we're not ready right now. It doesn't. I've been around the block a few times, right? So that nobody's going to kid me with we're putting this in place and we're putting this in place and we're going to have this and we're going to have that.
And
That's
that's why I got
you know,
you on side.
the Christmas tree looks great for 11 days, but once those presents are gone, it's just the tree.
Yeah.
It's
Amen.
so for me, I appreciate people saying about product and this, that, and the other, but I think that if we look at this properly, like with any situation, you've got to look at it as a business, and if you don't lay the foundation, right? And I'm not saying lip service. If you don't lay the foundation, you won't move along. We've got to improve. Coaching wise, management wise, guidance, helping clubs. There's lots to do. And we're capable. Don't get me wrong. And we do have athletes, because I don't buy into, we don't have athletes. We do.
Thank you for bringing that point up again, because I wanted to grab the point that you checked me on it, because definitely we do have athletes, and it is a thing where even for me, I sometimes say to myself, I would have loved to grow up in America, because, and obviously we watch the films, we hear about all the stories. I used to sit at work when I used to work in a betting shop and watch these 17-year-old, 18-year-old college football guys flying around, and they're being worldwide. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like, if I had grown up in the States, I would have kind of had more of an incentive to prioritize my athletic ability and not worrying about compromising my education. Obviously, my parents, I'm from an African background, and it was like books, 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 books. Oh, you can play a bit of football if you want on a Sunday, but make sure you go to church first. Like, sport wasn't really seen as the avenue. Everyone knew the dream of being a professional football player, whatever. But I was luckily brought up with the kind of realistic attitude of prioritizing, my education, which again I do not regret. But in America, it seems that they do place a very, very, very high value on finding a balance between the two, and one that can always complement the other. So when I say we don't have athletes here, I should probably package it more as the incentive to go down the athletic route is probably not as good here. The only time I think it probably works and gets picked up is if you're one of those lucky individuals that gets put on a Olympic scheme. I think there was one for handball once. Well, growing up, I think the only other scheme I saw something similar like that. I think they were looking for handball players for 2012. So they wanted anyone that was tall, that played basketball. They looked for specific athletes to fill this Olympic clientele, this niche area of people that
Yeah.
would get the funding, that would get coaches paid for, that get training and get physio, get all this kind of stuff. So it wasn't until I came to American football, even at an amateur level, that I was exposed to a sport where I had a coach working with me, like in my group. I had a physio at training, and it was like, wow, like this sport is not playing about, like. And that was at
Mm,
Olympians. When I came to Olympians in 2008, we were still in development, but we had an infrastructure there, even within the team, to embrace and make you think, hold on a minute, I'm not going to turn up to practice without doing the exercises that physio gave me, because that's what we're doing here. We're all on a page here. We want to get things done. And that's the reason why we climbed the leagues, got to the Premiership, and kind of swept teams away, because we had thought about the whole thing it takes to build a culture, understand how this vehicle of the team is going to move forward. So again, if Baffa can harness this vehicle of the fans, the buying, the people that want to buy into the sport, and get a way to kind of translate that into a philosophy and a culture, then hopefully things will kind of change. Phil, do you want to jump in, sir? You've been pretty quiet.
Yeah, no,
mm,
well, I'm listening to I totally agree with what everyone's saying here. Absolutely. We need a foundation. We need to build on that foundation, but also we need to have some aims of where we want to try to get to. And they need to be smart. They need to be achievable. They need to be specific. They need to be measurable, right? They need to be time realistic. Where are we trying to go in the next 2, 3, 4 years, right? Where what are we doing with the money that's being invested into the sport, right? Now, saying about what Rick was saying about inner city, I grew up in Queens, New York, in Astoria, right? And my
mm,
high school didn't have an athletics field, so that's why we didn't have an American football team, right? And
mm,
if we play baseball, the baseball field was 5 miles away from the school.
mm,
So but we had we had the number 2 basketball team in New York City. So we had indoor sports were great. So bowling, classic, but we don't, as Rick said, we don't have the facilities. I coach at the Oxford Saints. We have those facilities, right? We've been pretty well blessed, right? But we pay for those facilities, and
mm,
but we need to find a way to get all this being built. But also, when I was in Ireland, when they had the finals, they brought seats in for the game. They played an
mm.
enormous. They brought seats in so people can sit down. So there's other ideas that you can think about to make the experience a little bit better. But we need to be aiming for that. We can't just have this mentality where we need to be standing on the sidelines and watching the game from there. We need to build on it. We need a proper business plan, as well as a proper pathways.
Love it, love
Thank
it.
you.
You've actually segued me nicely. All right, I'll come to you first.
Okay.
I'll put the word realistically there. So there's a CEO of Baffa. You're in that role. In the next year, let's forget COVID and the restrictions of that and the possible implications that have. In the next year, as the CEO of Baffa, where would you target and what moves would you make with your budget, whatever it may be? Where would you target and how would you go about kind of trying to laying roots and kind of embracing this culture?
I'm going to be consistent with my themes here, and I would invest in youth programs because I think the more if you can build your fans and you can build your fan base and your players early, if you can build a lifelong fan and participant of the sport at 11 years old, then that's going to do nothing but grow. So I'm always trying to hook them in early. I think some of the most successful programs in Brit ball all have successful youth programs. You look at Warriors, they got a successful youth program. You look at the Kent Exiles, who I used to be affiliated with. They have a successful youth program. I think that is the key to the whole thing. So that's where I would go. Youth programs, youth programs, youth programs.
So you're saying Baffa a right to take my subs and give it to flag programs, yeah? All right, all right, all right. Controversial, but I'll let it go. I'll let it go.
Sorry,
All right,
sorry.
Rick, where you at, man? I know you're itching to kind of get that. Again, this is all in jest. This is all personal perspectives, opinions. I just want to rock the boat a little bit. You got a year next year. You're CEO. What are you doing? Where are you targeting?
Well, you know, it's not just for me, and I don't want to pick you up on a second point. This isn't just for me. This is in my blood. I put too much into this. Um, so I would never ever be the CEO. All right, because I'm just too passionate about the sport itself. I couldn't be. I don't know if I could be, but my number one thing would be, what do we have to do to get to 11-a-side football for kids? What is it that we need to do? And that's what I would do. I view
Money.
flag football. I view flag football as it's American football, but it's a different branch of American football. Not all flag kids. That's introduction to football. That's introduction to participation. That can be taken further and do. Tackle football is another part of it, and we need to have a plan for both of them. For me, the two priorities I would have would be, how do we make sure there would be three. How do we make sure we can get to 11-a-side football for kids ASAP? What do we need to put in place? Can we educate our coaches and our players on what is required for players to participate in NCAA, if that's where they want to, as an outlet, where they want to go? Because we don't do that. All right,
not
we
at all.
don't do that. Our kids don't know how they lose eligibility. They don't understand that. Our parents don't understand what it costs to get the kid ready or to pay, right? There's no
Or
free
testing.
rides. Yeah. And the third thing I would do is, because it's so close to my heart, is make sure the kids who want to be elite football, that want to play international, want to get into the CFL, NFL, want to play for the Great Britain team, have an avenue that we keep that going, because that would be the target for the young ones immediately. So that's where I would be, and if you look at that, that's because of my football background. Okay, a CEO may look at it in a completely different way, but I think that's what we need. That's what would inspire us. That's what would motivate us, would put a fire under what we're doing, and it would give us direction.
Excellent, excellent. Seems that targeting youth is a running theme. Mr. Demont, your CEO for the next year. What are you doing for me? What are you doing
as
for me?
Coach Rick said, he doesn't want to be CEO. I don't want to be CEO because that's just.
But you must, sir. You must. Your sport depends on it.
We are so behind the curve around the rest of Europe. I mean, when you take a look at the NFL Academy, they're bringing kids over who have been playing 11-man football since the age of 10, 11 years old. We don't start playing. We only play 9-man football when they're 17, 18 years old. We are so behind the curve. In the States, they're playing 11-man football when they're 10 years old. We need to get on that. The whole NCAA thing is absolutely correct. We need those pathways to tell these kids how to do it, but also they need to understand what's happening once they get over there. We need to set the expectations realistically. In a Division III school, you may not get that NFL contract, but you're going to get a. Okay.
I think it sounds definitely about culture, and the culture starts from setting a standard. The standard needs to be raised by the sounds of it.
The academics as well. The academics in the States is totally different from the academics over here. You need to get those SAT scores in there. You need to do X, Y, and Z to get selected. You want to play in the CFL. Your level of fitness and your dedication has got to be second to none. And that's part, but also that's part of the problem. Kids that are 16, 17 year old, try dragging them out of that pit on a Sunday morning when it's wet and cold. They don't want to get out of bed. You got to be, you got to be really dedicated to do that. And we need to instill that dedication when they're 10 years old, when they're 11 years old.
That's a shout. Uniball's too late, to be honest. I think if I had played Uniball, boy, I don't even know if I would have made it the senior ball, but I started on summer senior ball, and again, I fell in love with it. It did a lot for my life, and I bought into the culture. Do you know what I mean? It kept me healthy, kept me smart. Yeah, it's a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle. Maybe I won't scream Britball as my lifestyle, but the sport itself and what it's done for my social life, my personal life, even my working life, it's a great vehicle for that. And yeah, that's really why I wanted to discuss culture with you all today, because it's something important. All right, so we've got a vibe of obviously looking at the youth, and I think that's definitely something that will take time. One thing I did think about when I was prepping for this, the uni ball connecting with senior ball. So I was thinking that it would definitely help uni teams to have a feed-in senior team. It would definitely help senior teams to maybe pally up with uni teams that have facilities. Where do you think there's room for that in the Britball game? How do you think that could work? Obviously we've got Bristol and the NFL Academy. Again, they're two kind of establishments that are trying to achieve certain things. Obviously, Bristol have got the academic side. I haven't heard people screaming that's amazing, but at the end of the day, they produce great athletes. And when we played the Bristol team last, it was an interesting experience because they're ballers. But again, the uni ball interacting with senior ball, how can that be improved?
Well, I coach at uni level, right? And one of the things that I heard for years is, well, it's uni football. It's not good as senior football. They don't know what they're doing. They're doing this. They're doing that. Uh, over the years, I've seen more and more GB players coming out of university playing university football than I think coming out of youth. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Coach Idle, but I see more and more university players playing at the GB level. I think that senior teams should take an interest because at the end of the day, that is okay. So even if you're going down there and helping coach, you're taking part, you're helping in the game day management, you're getting them involved, you're selling your product of senior football to the guy may not be able to attend to play for your team, but he's going to then go looking around for a team where he's from to play football.
Hey Phil,
yes.
Do you think that might be because people are becoming more aware that if they go to a senior team, they'll burn a year of eligibility if they have NCAA aspirations?
Well, if realistically, if you're playing uni football, are you really thinking about going to the NCAA?
Well, no, I'm kind of tying this into the fact that you're saying you're more uni players playing for GB and not doing senior ball. I'm kind of tie those two together.
But
is that because they might have aspirations?
Correct me if I'm wrong here. As soon as you start playing university football over here, your eligibility starts. It's as soon as you finish. As soon as you finish playing youth or junior football, I think that's, and I'm willing to be corrected on that. But I think again, I like to deal with the core of the situation here. So as long as I've been in football, there's been clashes between senior leagues and universities, and for many reasons, power struggles around the table, all this kind of stuff, built animosity and all of this. But let's just talk about the football. One of the things that's always scared me about uni ball, and it's also one of the things that I admire about the guys. They'll take a kid from fresher week 6 to 8 weeks later and have him on the field.
Crazy.
And to be able to
dangerous.
And to be able to do that has scared me and admired me. It's also worried me because you could also be taking a kid from fresher who goes his first game is against a university team where they've got 2 or 3 year veterans. But nonetheless, they managed to do it. But the core of all of this is, if you are a head coach at a university, you have the opportunity to have a player for 3 or 4 seasons. You have the opportunity to have them on campus with facilities to improve a player's ability. To me, rather than what kind of relationship can we have, because we should all have a great relationship, referees, coaches, players, but we're a football family. One of the things that we should work on is making sure universities understand, and I think in the whole they do, the opportunity that is there with a captive audience. You understand where I'm getting to here? So I think having a relationship is great, but more importantly to me would be making sure or helping in a way to maximize the experience of the football player at university so he helps to improve overall whichever program he goes to play for.
Yep.
If your sole thing is let me get in with that university because it's going to bring me players, then I don't think that's right. I think it should be about let's help create an atmosphere where 3 or 4 years you have somebody who's dedicated to weights, track, education, football. You know, they really take it on board, and I think that Coach Phil said, you know, there's more and more university players that have played for GB. I've not been around GB properly since 2010, but certainly I always found that if you went to Loughborough, because that was one of the venues we used, you'd look around you and there's some kids that can, you know, there were some athletes there. So there are definitely, you know, it's good picking.
Loughborough's a hub for obviously
Yeah,
sporting
yeah,
athletes,
yeah, yeah.
and they live and breathe it. So I went there for an event, and I was aware that obviously they got the stadium down the bottom of campus. And even though I was there for an event on a random evening, I'm not even sure what day of the week it was, there were kids messing around. They were running routes, they were throwing balls around. And I thought to myself, damn, like if I had done American football like that, freely, socially, and kind of just embraced myself in it for 3 years, I would have thought, you know what, I'm definitely going to go have a little bit of fun in Europe and see where it takes me. If CFL and
Mm.
all the rest that had opened up to it, do you know, it's amazing. I put a ball in my younger brother's hand, and his friend has links to America, so he knew how to throw. They were throwing the ball around, and my brother was like, "Oh yeah, I could be a quarterback. I'm gonna get mad." And I'm just like, "Wow, that was 2 3 weeks of just having a ball to throw around." Do you know what I mean? So I think youth is definitely key, and again, it's the culture. If uni can provide a forum for that culture to develop, definitely that's where it's gonna go.
You know, if I could just just
Mhm.
throw this in here. You know, when we get a kid from going to Fresh Affair, we're fighting every other sport and every other activity out there. So we got to really sell American football. Yeah, we have 6 to 8 weeks to get a player ready, but we're out on the practice field three, four times a week, and we're also having classroom sessions, right?
Mm.
So when that 3, 4 weeks come around, now when I also get a player, and they're very serious about playing football, I also say, listen, if you're going to carry this on and you want to take this further, go find the local senior team, practice with them. How then is your game going to be? How if you're going to take your level is going to be stepped up another year? So when you come back to university year two, how much better are you going to be? And how can you play? How can you apply that to the university team? And then you go back to the senior team the second year. So by the time you're done with your university season, your university career, you're now ready to jump very easily into a senior team somewhere because you've been practicing and practicing at that level, possibly playing
Definitely.
at that level while you're still going to university.
Mr. Perkins, for someone that's nearly got to the show, how do you think the British, model can move from where it is now? I don't know if you've had much experience of university ball, but what do you
None,
think the key
none
is?
whatsoever.
Okay,
Um, Man, I think the NFL Pathways program is good, but I'm interested in that myself. There's more. I'm trying to find out more about that myself. I mean, I have a son myself that I'm
okay.
not necessarily sure if I want him to play football, but I mean the
Mm,
option's always there. I mean, I guess that's another discussion in itself whether they even want my kids to play football because I've had 8 concussions. My knees
wow.
are a mess. So
Mm. But yeah,
but as
you
far
mentioned
as
the play. Yeah, yeah, go on. You mentioned the player pathway program, and again, for me, I've had friends that worked at NFL UK and some that are involved in some aspects of that. And again, for me, it does seem like something. If you're not involved in NFL Academy or you don't know the right people, that may not be something that's kind of put on your plate or put on your radar even. So it's definitely something that maybe people need to kind of dig out rather than just thrust out there to them as an option. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Anyone else had any more experience with the NFL pathway program?
Well, I know they're looking for athletes. They're not looking for ball players. They're looking for athletes.
they will find you. I mean, what's FA? You can't teach 6'5", 270. They'll find you.
Yeah, I think that's you make a kind of good point here. What if you are an extraordinary size human being with strength and speed, you will have an opportunity if that's where you want to go. If you're a defensive back, a wide receiver who's quick, etc., etc., you're going to have to prove yourself on the football field a little bit. That's the opinion I have right now. Before you can move on, but I think that there are, like I said, there are athletes in the UK. It's not just up to the NFL. It's not up to the CFL. It's up to us as part of the British American football family to educate them on what's available if they want to do it. Talent scout, understand what talent scouting is. Identify talent, put in programs that helps them improve that talent and how they can move forward. And all of this again comes into, it's a different arena, but like you said, why do young people have to dig out information? Why is it not readily available to them? Why are we not transparent about this stuff? Why is it not important? Because their core, right?
The culture's not there, mate. It's not there. But yeah, that's why we're here today, to tease it all out. You're singing to the choir, sir. Right. I thought I'd get a little bit controversial. I'm not lucky enough to have been involved in the GB program. But I thought, hold on a minute, why is there a Great Britain team? Obviously, the uptake of the sport, the amount of athletes that are available, maybe there's not enough, to have more than that. Obviously, we have an English football team, Scottish football team, Irish football team. Do you think there's any benefit of opening it up and splitting up the nations and having an English American football team and a Scottish American football team, Irish, and so on and so forth? Is there any benefit to that? Just to throw it out there, cat amongst the pigeons. Anyone can jump in.
Absolutely. You need a pyramid, right, to be able to work through it. If you had a 4 nations tournament or 3 nations, you're teaching players how to prepare, be competitive. If you had, taking it back from there, you have your senior team, you have your development senior team. If we're talking just about senior football right now, because this would also be related to the youth side of things as well, you would have underneath the development team. What do we do with a player who's 18, 19 years old? He's not going to step straight up into the senior team. He shouldn't, because if he can, then we have a very poor program,
Right.
So you've got to have a competitive counties, a regional, all of this, again, it comes down to funding. It comes down to organization, and is it what we want? Is it in our core that this is how we want to go about stuff? There used to be 4 nations, and it used to be really, really enjoyable. But it was about.
Oh wow, when was that date? When was that? Do you know?
90s,
No way.
right? But it's
Okay.
then, where do you fit it in? This
There
is
we
the
go.
only. This is the only country that I know of where football is almost 11 months of the year. Not at the moment, but it is almost 11 months of the year. There's no off season for athletes to rest and develop. There is no time to be able to put on these events unless you become imaginative and say, okay, you know what, we're going to do the 4 nations, and the way we're going to do it is over a 2-week or a 3-week period where people can come in one weekend, a second weekend, and then you have a round robin, just to have the will to do it. Let's find a way to do it. So it's a young kid who's, if he gets scouted to play for county and then England and then, well, he knows he's on a path. He can't wait to get picked up by GB, But then again, as the sport grows, you will see all-star programs and so on. I mean, and the experience, if I remember rightly, coached at Ireland, the experience of young Irish kids coming over to England, or England going over to Ireland, the whole travel aspect, the organisation. This is a learning lesson,
stuff,
life learning lessons, and so, yes, the answer is yes.
I know you got to go soon, sir. Do you want to quickly jump in on that one?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say something that Rick has heard many times. Yeah, I've got to go, but I just want to say it's been wonderful talking with you guys. And you know what, Victor, I'd hope to do it again. Please give me a call anytime you want me to
Definitely,
jump
I'll
in
let
and
you know, sir. I'll
chat a
let you
little
know,
football,
man.
man.
I'll let you
All
know,
right.
man.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for
cool.
your input, man.
All
Take
right,
care,
gentlemen.
sir.
Have a good
Take
evening. Bye
care.
bye.
Take care.
You know,
Phil, jump in, sir.
the first time I actually met Rick was in Wales
Oh,
for Wales versus Ireland, because I was part
no way.
of the national team and actually the Irish national team as well. I've always said, how can you actually play for GB if you're not playing for England first?
Wow. So see,
I couldn't understand that. And you know what though, and unfortunately though, it didn't have the emphasis that it should have had back when it was running. It should, I think we should have these regional camps.
mm, so I thought about it as cat amongst the pigeons, just prepping again for today. I thought, where could things go? And the fact that you've said it's been done before, and it was, something that was great for people involved. Again, no brainer. I put in their regional academies again when I was prepping, because you got obviously the NFL academy, you got Bristol, and then you don't really hear of anyone kind of doing it. But within the Britball community, the whole North and South thing, it's not really tested. Obviously, the playoff format allows some sort of interaction between the North and the South. But then coming up the leagues, I remember when we were coming up the leagues, we didn't play enough Northern teams. And I think there were some really good Northern teams that may have got overlooked because there were a few that stood out and were kind of hammering everyone else. But then some of those lesser Northern teams could have come down to the South with a certain level of vigor and a bit of rage and then knocked some of the Southern teams about. And it would have been a kind of a learning experience and galvanized the players to think, hold on a minute, we know we're going to go and play a couple of Northern teams a year. We want to represent for the South. And for me, again, the GB thing, as I say, I weren't really involved firsthand. I heard stories. Rick, do you need to step away, sir? If you have to, yeah, it's cool, it's
Just,
cool, it's cool. Go ahead.
just give me 1 second and I'll be back. But I can hear you. All
No
right.
worries. Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
Yes.
what I heard about the GB situation, again, the fact that we've gone to a GB team over a separate, like kind of regional teams, kind of emphasizes the fact that there is an energy to kind of get the best of the best. But again, it's clicky. I kind of heard murmurs that you only have to play for certain teams to get into the GB team. You have to play under certain coaches, and that kind of demotivated, get out me a little bit to even apply. But now I hear you can put, players get put forward a minimum amount of players per team. But yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, well, going back to the whole North-South thing, back in the day when university leagues, we had the Cougars and the Wildcats. The Wildcats was the southern team, the Cougars was the northern team. And one of the things that you really had to do to make you play for the GB University League is play for the Cougars and the Wildcats. And you know what? I was involved in the Wildcats program, and it was a lot of fun. Getting the guys from the different universities, having tryouts, getting a few practices, and then playing a game. It was great. As for the GB, I had the privilege of coaching GB under 19. I didn't see the clicky thing as people talk about. I didn't see it at the GB under 19. I had a pretty enjoyable experience. Unfortunately, I was ill at the time toward the end of it. And not many people knew that, but I was a bit ill. But I had a great time doing it, and I enjoyed coaching the kids, and I thought they were absolutely fantastic to coach. Um, I thought it was a bit of a struggle when we went to France. I thought it was a bit of a struggle when we went to Holland. But you know what though, the kids enjoyed it, and I thought the game against Norway back in the UK, we had pretty good turnout for it, and the guys enjoyed it. I totally support the national programs. I think they should keep it up, but I think we need a stepping stone first, which is the Scotland, Wales, etc.
Definitely. I think, do you know what? Playing Britball, the way that this is all set up now, you have a massive disparity, even in the top tier. So the Premiership, you're talking about teams that have players that will, embrace athleticism, go hard in the gym 3, 4 times a week.
Mhm.
And even maybe within that team, you have players that are just there to get to know the sport. There is no kind of filtering to make the elite for me. And again, we don't want to exclude anyone who wants to take part, because at the end of the day, we need the bodies, we need people, to fuel the sport. But if at the national level the pathway is not clear, it can then kind of dissuade those that are thinking, do I commit to this sport? Do I invest the £500 that you financially probably have to do to be elite? And get involved with a coach that might be able to give me that extra tips away from my team to be an elite athlete. And it is that culture to buy in to what it seems to be an expensive culture at the moment because it's not nationally kind of acknowledged for its benefit.
Mm.
But no, it's a hard one. And again, I just threw this question out there as a teaser. But yeah, to talk about the national level and where it needs to kind of go, you need to find out a bit beforehand, to feed into what would actually become those
The
reputable national teams.
the thing that a lot of people have to recognize, because although we're sitting here and talking about, in England or Scotland or Wales, an all-star program and all of this, I just want to make it clear that I'm not naive enough to believe that all of this does not cost money. In my opinion, if you want to play American football in this country, as a player, you need to set aside £1,000 a year. And what does that include? That would include your membership, your equipment, your gym membership, your travel that you may do backwards and forwards. And if you sit down and work it out, it's going to be between £800 and £1,000. And most players may only focus on their club membership, okay, and not think of all the ancillary stuff. All right. And then if you get involved in the national program and you get involved in all the little steps, like the all-star programs and the national, that's going to cost money. So I'm not naive enough to think that, hey, all of this can just happen with a magic wand. It requires funding. It requires funding from the people who participate as well, because we are just not at the stage where it can be funded solely by the governing body. We're just not there. All right. Even I don't think we're there financially. Okay. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think we have to recognize that. But I think a better job has to be done from the top to the bottom and from the bottom to the top in order to make that happen. So while Utopia is having all these programs and having these opportunities, what
There's a
we may have
transition
to
that needs to
do,
happen.
yeah, exactly. What we may have to do is that instead of a home nations, we just have a South and North All-Star at the moment, because that, and so on.
Make a spectacle.
Yeah, but you have got to get players involved in understanding the excitement and the motivation and the momentum to, this is where I'm going to go. This is what I want to do. So as well as playing for my club, this is where I want to be.
I think it's very carrot and stick, and I think a split up and a breakup of these programs would definitely provide an incentive for those people that are thinking of, we call it again, buying in to the sport and the institution that the sport can be. So yeah, man, it's awesome. It's awesome
So
that
by the
again.
way, I don't want to see the GB Lions split up.
No, that's the thing. I would never want to. I would never want to
I
break that up, but to find a transition and to way to get to that, and it would only complement the GB Lions. Again,
I spent 17 years doing that. All right, and I can tell you now, nearly every moment was enjoyable. All right, every moment with the players being on the field was enjoyable.
It's prestigious.
All right?
It's definitely prestigious.
And it was it wasn't just about the prestige. You know what it was? It was to see players who wanted to challenge each other, who wanted to, and then unfortunately, because you sometimes ended up with some players because they can afford to do it,
Yes.
and that really kind of, but then you look at the bigger picture to keep it going until you can get to a position where more of the players who could not afford to would be
able to
involved,
be included.
and that's part and that's part of the governance of the whole thing, is that you need to say, okay, how do we make sure that people can get involved?
Definitely. Excellent. Thank you for those responses. Anything more to add to that, Phil, or someone who's been in the uni game and in and around the uni game?
I think funding's a big issue. As someone who coached and actually had a son who played under 19, we were paying double, so it was quite expensive. It was very expensive. So I totally believe in we need to have the funding in place, and I think that's something that I think the sport we need to go at. And again, it's all about the product thing. How do we sell ourselves? Get commercial sponsors in so we can actually pay for this stuff, etc. We can't just have the programs going. when we have a tournament in the year before a tournament, we need to have it actually all the time. It's a difficult thing to do, but again, it's all about the dinero, about the bucks. Bottom
It's
line.
sad. It's sad, but it's true. It's sad, but it's true. And a lot of the things, it's sad that a lot of things in life, in terms of opportunities, do boil down to money. But again, when we talk about culture and opportunities, and that I love the fact that the American system is what it is, and
Mm-hmm.
the kid from the ghetto can, just be hardcore baller, get a
Yeah.
scholarship, and just turn his life around, start a foundation, and hopefully those ripples will keep going and going and going. You hear all these stories about the LeBron Jameses and the big players, and even seeing stuff like the Water Painting Award and the
FA.
NFL the FA. But when you're seeing the athletes that actually get commended for their community work, whether or not it's publicity, whether or not it's whatever it is, they're feeding back, they're giving back, and it's a reinforcing prophecy that the culture kind of feeds back into itself, goes
Mm-hmm.
round and round. The alumni culture at universities in America, the business aspect, everything kind of feeds in to kind of complement that energy and kind of being dedicated to what you do. So again, for me, someone who's taken up American football kind of out of a hobby and paid to play the game for 12 years, yeah, Rick's saying about how much it costs every year, and if I was to calculate that, I probably would have thought at the beginning of the sport, if I was being told, oh, over the next years you're going to spend this amount of money playing American football, I probably thought, nah, I can't afford that. But you do it because you buy in and you
Yeah.
see how it works. I can't wait for the sport to get to a point where um, BAFA and the actual league start to invest in itself and it
Mm-hmm.
starts to pay back. And the stuff like, an England team comes up, the All-Star games start getting broadcast on your Sky Sports or your Eurosport. People having massive games out in Ireland, and it'll be amazing to see the culture grow organically. And yeah, I just hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later. It's just waiting to see what happens. Yeah. What's next, Mr. Rick? If an English team was supposed to actually get started, obviously England's associated with Wembley. Where and how would you think that would work? We're talking utopia. We're talking theory. How would that kind of come about, and what would need to be done to
Well,
to
the
make that happen?
first thing we need to do is have a Scotland team before we have an
Oh
England team.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
You're native.
all
You're
right,
native.
right.
Yeah, Titan.
So again, you make it convenient for the players where they can travel to and so on. And we used to look at, hey, most of the teams are based in this area, so do it there. Where are the motorway links, etc., etc. In at the end of the day, we worked out that kind of Birmingham, Nottingham, that kind of region there was good for most people, and equal travel, and you could do. Um, a practice on a Saturday or a practice on a Sunday. Later on, I kind of really much prefer doing a weekend because it's amazing how the players improve after 3 or 4 practices in a weekend. Plus, it's for me that's the weekend camps are the better way to go. But yeah, I think that you make it as central as you can to make people. For people to be able to travel there. I think part of that you have to set up a scouting network as well, so that you can, one of the things is if you turn up at a game and you've scouted a kid, he's excited. He's excited. He's been seen. You want him, and everybody wants to be wanted, right? We want that sense of belonging. We want to be wanted, and I think that yeah, for me it'd be wherever the players can travel to easily with the correct facilities. Um, and again, there's where the some of the universities have got great facilities. Great facilities. I love their Oxford facilities as well. I think the only thing missing there is accommodation. You've got to ride to the accommodation, but the facility is fantastic.
I think Sussex have got an amazing new pitch. We went down there, I think, a couple of years ago, and it was spanking. And it was amazing. It was amazing. Now, Phil, how would you kind of logistically try and put that?
You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to win the lottery and buy the Oxford facility, right? And you know what I'd do?
What are we all?
I would build an indoor facility, practice facility where you can actually play games, but I'd also build a dormitory as well and have that as a camp because it's granted it is down south, but it's pretty close to the M4, the M40. But that's what we need. We need like what they have for soccer. We need what they have. We need a national facility, and if we actually had that, I think we would improve. We'd have places for people to go and have these weekend camps. We don't really have that at the moment at all.
Well, Coach, I have to tell you, we do. There's a couple of universities that I think would be ideal. One of them is Nottingham.
Yeah.
The other one is Derby. I think both of those universities have got great facilities, and from a filming point of view, getting there, classrooms, the whole thing. I think there are a couple of universities. But if you won the lottery, don't let your wife hear what you're talking about because
She
she'd
already
shoot
knows.
you. Okay.
That's awesome.
But we
That's
don't have
awesome.
that purpose. I mean, it's
No,
great to
no.
have
Yeah,
Nottingham but we're also fighting those other sports that are taking place. So we
Yes,
have
definitely.
dedicated facility available 52 weeks out of the year, right?
Mm,
7 days a week, man. We can do so much.
yeah.
mm. So we had a camp. Oh, what year was it? Must have been 2009 or 2010 at Crystal Palace. So obviously Crystal Palace was a very prestigious, I think, Olympic training venue, good level venue. We had the dorms on top of it, like in the park. We had a couple of different training surfaces to use. We had access to a gym. I don't think we didn't do much in the gym, but we did multiple practices over the weekend. I think we had a scrimmage at the end as well with another team that came down. And for me, as someone who never played the sport, to be focused wholly on the sport solidly for what 72 hours plus building up to it as well, prepping and whatever else, getting up, having breakfast, doing classroom, going out there, coming back, doing classroom, going out again, having dinner. Like the camaraderie, the understanding of the depth of the sport and the learning that was done in just one weekend, dedicating maybe a 6 week camp when I was on school holidays. Oh my God, I would have been a beast. I would have been an FA Abada, not only physically but in knowledge as well. Just to be able to embrace the sport and what it was. I would have gone home after the holidays, thought, you know what, mum, I'm gonna still do my books, but at weekends I'm gonna be doing football. I'm gonna join the gym. I'm gonna do these things because of those camps, being with the lads, being with my mates. We all would have been rookies, new people taking up the sport, but we all would have been tested. Think, all right, I'm gonna make sure my 40 yard time, my 40 yard dash is this, my combine time is that. I'm never gonna drop a ball. Oh, you dropped that. Like even playing as a rookie in this country, starting in development, like the coach trip. I think we went to where did we go for? We went to Cornwall. We drove all the way to Cornwall to play a game, and I remember we won that game. I think by a point or 2 points. The team went for two. No, it must be the point because our team went for 2 points to kill us and send us home with our tails between our legs, crying. So we won that game by 1 point. We stayed the night up there. We had a team bonding thing the night before, and it was absolutely like an unforgettable experience. I think the Premier Inn when we stayed, they even put our photo on the wall because we'd come there and we saw it. I think the year after when we went back. But again, it's these memories that I have. I think to myself, I didn't even do this with my friends that I grew up with. I did this with a whole different set of people that now I can call lifelong friends because we can talk about that experience. If I had then had done it with the boys that I went to school with, and we were studying, and we were the brothers joining this team, and we started a team. Oh my God, we would have been a force to be reckoned with, because all my friendships group that I played sport with got to under 18s at soccer, and there was no league for us. There was no football league for us anymore. There's no football team to join, and we was all floating around lost, thinking, what should we do? If we had started a flag American football team, like we would have been kind of capitalizing on the fitness we had from soccer, learning a new discipline, and we would have kind of been scooped up and embraced by that sport, which I was then 3 or 4 years later, 4 or 5 years later. And it's weird and wacky that a sport that can include so many isn't embraced as much within society and isn't embedded more in the culture here. Again, they're trying. But again, it needs to be done a little bit more, I think, and it needs to kind of work. So this academy situation, where do you think it's going next? Phil, do you want to jump in on academies?
I think the academies are doing a great job. I would like to see a British born offensive lineman make it into the NFL.
Amen. There's rugby boys. There's definitely a lot of rugby boys coming through that probably could be that
That's what I'd
be
like to
that
see.
guy.
I mean,
Definitely,
we've had
definitely.
British born people make it into the NFL, but actually have a British-born kid coming up through the ranks, or quarterback coming up through the ranks academy and getting drafted, going to an NCAA team, and then being picked.
How do you think they're going to cope with the smarts though? Because having picked up the sport late and having to study it as well as keep
Well,
yourself at tip-top elite shape, it's going to be a massive challenge to match those guys that have been playing it from yay high, muscle memory much more, the knowledge of the game. That's going to be the bridge. And I guess how do you think that's going to be met?
but I mean, you take a look at FA. FA done it.
D lineman versus O lineman, though. I think D lineman, you can kind of get away with just being a bit of an animal and knowing left or right of the guy in front of you, you know? O lineman is a bit more, being an O lineman myself, it's a little bit more of an intellectual man's.
It might be a few more years, but I
Mm,
see that happen.
quarterback, even more technical
Quarterback,
to, you
offensive
need
line,
to study. Yeah,
running
yeah.
back, someone you come up through the ranks,
Mm,
play a youth team, go to an academy, go into
mm.
NCAA, and then play in the NFL.
Academy's prospects, Mr. Rick, chime in for me, sir.
Well, I think the FA has done really, really well. What we have to remember about FA is FA invested a lot into a short space of
Everything.
time.
Yeah.
And how many FAs are going to come along? I can tell you now, in 37 years of football, I think I saw 3 people, perhaps, that were the same kind of body build, etc., because they're special.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It just so
Mm,
happens, God's gone. I'm blessing you,
yeah.
and bang.
Mm.
But he still had to take that talent and work with it, because without work, you're not going to. Talent's useless.
That's it. Dwayne
But
Chambers and the other ones that went over there
yeah,
and didn't
but
quite do
so
it. Why
so
not?
it's so it's we have to keep things realistic and perspective as well. I think that kids should have the opportunity to get better at their football and get into an education system in the NCAA, if that's
Amen.
the route they want
Amen.
to take. So, because not all of them are going to make the NFL. They've got to have something, and this is really, really important, that they must have something that they can lean on should they not make the NFL. Now, if we look at the UK, let's just have a look at Germany and Poland and so on. How many O linemen from there are actually in the NFL right now? So it's not a case of in certain positions it's going to be easier, in other positions it's going to be more
100%.
difficult. I think the quarterback position is going to be, not just, you can educate yourself to read coverages, you can educate yourself to deal with fronts, but it's
Instincts, though.
the
Yeah.
speed of the decision making, right?
Mm.
That's the tough thing.
The semantics is,
You
yeah.
could take an O lineman, and you go to the NFL, coach will vouch for it. They'll give you a playbook this thick, right? But the O line thing, you've just got to pare it away and get to where the O line thing is, and just learn that. Take care of that. For me, I think that academies are really important, and I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, because I suggested it last year when I was there. Great NFL Academy, great Bristol Academy. What about a BAFA Academy? What
Yes.
about
Derby and Nottingham
one,
universities. Love it.
2, or 3? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not a BAFA
Or
Academy?
a rolling academy that moves to different locations, different
It's
years, and get
satellite
it going.
programs. There's
Mm.
so, but again, I'll go back to its core. You've got to go back to your core and say, what do you want to do? Right now, what I see is it's about participation and solidifying, right? If that's what it is, then I think that we need to understand that that's the priorities. We could sit here and say this, that, and the other, but right now it's about expanding the base of the game. Um, from what I see, I'm not saying it's from me, that it's expanding the base of the game, getting more participants involved, diversity, ticking boxes, etc., to get ourselves in a position, perhaps for funding, or perhaps it's just whatever. I'm not privy to that, but I think getting back to our academy is useful. Absolutely, absolutely. You
It's
know,
definitely something that is necessary because, again, as I mentioned before, when I was younger, if I had gone to a camp, run a 40 and been told, wow, yeah, like you're pretty quick, or I'd done the combined drills and they'd shown me what the pros are running, what I was running, and the potential that I could have improved at a young age. It would have been the carrot and the stick to say, look,
Yeah,
like 6 weeks in
yeah,
the gym and you can improve yourself and come close to being one of
yeah,
those guys that you're watching on TV. So
yeah.
again, this is where I'll come back to even having the energy to want to come on here and do this, because I've had a little taste of the culture iceberg that American football is, and it's definitely something that needs to be embraced and rolled out in a practical way soon. The CEO aspect of BAFA now and having someone who needs to be accountable to the way things are moving, it's definitely something I'm going to monitor as much as best possible, and hope that this moves forward well. The whole scandal about subs not being paid back again, I was personally impacted by that, and I got 2 kids as well. And you're not talking about a lot of money to the individual, but you're talking about a lot of money over the years that's been taken by an organization
C-
that again has been responsible for
Can I
using that.
can I flip this a little bit
Go
and
for it.
ask you a question?
We can.
You said a CEO who's now accountable.
Hmm.
Accountable to who?
To the people that, again, to the non-government organization body, whatever that he represents, because he is again their coach that's going to guide the players within that to achieve whatever their
Who?
measurables are.
Who?
The CEO, obviously, and all the other people that hold positions within BAFA
Right.
need to obviously meet the goals and objectives that BAFA have set out when obviously taking membership and operating an organization that is there to service its members. So again, I'm a disgruntled member at the moment because I feel that I paid money last year. Fair enough, we're unprecedented times and things have happened for whatever reason. But over the last few years, I don't feel that I've paid for a product. I feel I've paid for an administrative process that needs to be there for my safety, etc., etc. Fair enough. But in terms of what I've been given back, it's like, wow, like I don't even see a Baffa stand it when I was at all these London series games. Like, I never saw Baffa there. So you're talking about your sport and the matinee kind of production of your sport within the country. You're not there. And I'm thinking to myself, how hard is it to set up a stand and say hello? Like Baffa members come down, say hello to us, meet us, let me see your face. I wouldn't recognize the CEO if I saw him on the street. That might be my own fault for not seeking him out. But you know what? It's a weird one. It's a weird one. But when you're giving to this product, which is a governing body, you're expecting to kind of get something back. You're expecting them to lead on the adopting of this culture, this sport that they're governing. Do you know what I mean? So again, you're welcome to chime in on this, Mr. Rick, that asked me the question. Like, where the measurables at, sir?
For for me, you know, I've had 2 or 3 conversations with Pete Ackley. He's a really nice guy. Don't have an issue, whatever.
He's the CEO.
I
Then yeah,
I I,
let it go.
I just what I need to understand is this, right? And that's why I'm asking you the question,
Mm,
because you've said CEO, you've used the word accountability.
mm.
Do you know who he's accountable to and what that process is?
I don't
Do
know the
you know?
specific
Right.
process, but for me as a
So
member and
right.
someone who actually bought into his project, like I want to
Yep.
see something. What is that
Right.
something? I'm waiting to see.
Because at the end of the day, the CEO works through guidelines, right?
Yep.
And that's for me is exactly, when we say things like accountability. So I want to understand, and I don't fully understand, right?
No,
What is that path?
no,
And if it
it's true.
fails, will we know where it failed,
Hmm.
or will we,
Definitely.
you
Definitely.
know?
Well, they need to use the vehicles that are there to kind of make themselves known to us, show us that they're going to be accountable, show this account. Maybe I'm not necessarily asking for physical accounts. There's people that might want to see that, but that doesn't really interest me because I'm willing to put the money into the pot to do what the sport needs to do. Do you know what I mean? Phil, do you want to jump in there, sir? You want to
I
chuck
mean,
a little bit in there?
I think again, uh, I'm going to throw a word out here: transparency.
Hmm.
You know, for years I've been hearing about this. For years I've been, one for transparency. You know, we need to have where's our money going, who's spending it, how they spending it, and is that really out there? I mean, you know, you could look back to the old days where they spent like 100K on a program, the whole sports plan, and it went nowhere. And you sit back and you think, what the hell's going on here? Um, I think that Peter's trying to do a good job. I think COVID threw a span in the works. That was a big, that
But
but
then
I,
it's also an opportunity,
yeah,
to then kind of build yourself up to
yeah.
get something done.
But at the same time, I was like, we only got how much of our money back?
Ah,
People saying, where did it go? How was it spent? Cool, I get that.
Mm,
But at the end of the day, I work in IT and I work in services, and I use two words: margins and metrics. Right? Where's the margin and where's the metrics? And I need to see that.
definitely, definitely. And again, it's easy to talk from without the situation. I'm not privy enough to be a CEO of any organization except for my household, and I keep that running as best possible. So I hope that obviously BAFA will do their thing for the household that is, Britball, and we're definitely a growing family. Again, the London Series games for me was a massive sign to kind of show the potential of a showpiece event that could possibly be in this country. If people were aware of obviously the teams, the North to South thing, the England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales thing, I'm sure that people will turn out to watch the American football thing, like that battle go on between, clubs, countries. It would definitely be a great sight if it was to, find a way to happen. And it would generate its own, it will pay for itself, I think, if done properly and promoted properly. Parents will come down to see their kids play for the English American football team. Even that parent that says, I don't want you to go, it's too dangerous, don't play that sport. And then they find out, hold on, they can play flag. He's running around like in his football boots, like he would in a bib and some flags. Like, they'll get it done. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, hopefully we'll get to that point where we can kind of bridge this gap of metrics and all the rest of those technical things, and realize that investing in a culturally, I say culturally sound, but such a culturally diverse sport as American football would definitely have its dividends and payoffs if it's done in a transparent way. Do you know what I mean? Rick, you're welcome to come in. Phil, go ahead.
We've done 2 hours now. I'm getting
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, no, no. At 10 o'clock
Oh,
was the point, and we've reached that, and I really
no,
appreciate you both for
No,
hanging on. And again, we've only done this from a very one word culture, and obviously one name, Kaepernick, and we've
yeah,
managed to talk for 2 hours without getting too deep into the crux of the
so,
yeah,
issues. And
um,
thank you both for like not getting too political with it, and reserving any sort of any judgments that's too controversial. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about very emotive subjects, and even me personally, I've had to kind of stand back from getting too emotive about everything that's happened. Us being, well, being a young British male, black male, it's different from understanding what's going on in America and the level of the struggle and how overt things can be. But at the same time, I've got two young kids that are of mixed heritage, and thinking about what the world's going to be like for them, and even certain things when I was younger that were normal for me, it kind of things can get a bit sticky and get emotional. But you know what it is? American football is a very violent, manic sport, and it kind of represents the way the world is. And I'm glad I found it. Glad I got involved. And glad I was able to, like, lay people out and get violent, shake their hands, and go home and not get arrested. It was a nice forum to, be a man. I hate that. I'm not chauvinist. I'm not, women play the sport now, and it's amazing. But do you know what? Growing up in the time that I did, born in '86, and I'm young, but I'm kind of getting to that age where I'm realizing that things have changed. I'm getting to that age where I used to hear my parents say certain things, think, "Oh, what are you going on for? Is it really that?" But it is really that deep when you start to kind of witness life and understand it. So, yeah, culture, American football. I will preach it till the cows come home, because I was able to meet people like yourselves, who again I can sit and listen to for ages and just kind of take from your experiences, and have a wealth of my own that lead me to get involved in things and kind of start mentoring kids and trying to coach American football, play American football. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. Anything more you guys want to add before I wrap this show up?
no. Just listen, Vic, thanks for inviting me.
Anytime,
Good,
sir.
good to see Coach Phil. I haven't seen him for a while.
Mm,
And I think that these kind of podcasts and the shows, it only goes to show exposure. It only helps
mm,
us. There, if there's anything that's been said today that's negative or whatever, I think my own personal thing in life is look at both sides of it.
mm.
If
Mm.
somebody says something, there's somewhere in there is a root or a reason. Try to
Mm.
find what that is and
Amen.
see. And again, I try to be transparent and honest as I
Mm.
can. My only agenda is that it's something that I've been longer involved in football than half my age. It's just, so
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
yeah.
Phil, last word, sir.
Yeah,
You want to jump forward?
I grew up in the civil rights era, and I remember when
Mm.
MLK was killed. I remember Walter Cronkite broadcasting it. I see things change. Social protests have been going on. I think the media makes it worse by some of the stuff that they show. Well, not that they show it, but how they spin it.
Yeah,
Right? I think
always.
there's good in everybody's hearts, right? And I think we need to start focusing more on the good rather than the negative, and try to come together more as a people, as a human race, right? And I think that's what I love about American football. It's a great equalizer, right? You get out on the field and anything can happen, right? And at the end of the day, you're all wearing, you're on the sideline, you're all wearing the same uniform, you're all brothers or sisters, right? And that's what it's all about, and enjoying the sport. And it's great to see Rick again. Victor, it's great to see you again. And I just, hope
Great
we
stuff.
settle down and we get back to playing some football soon.
Awesome. You're both always welcome on any show I'm hosted anyway. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know definitely down the line. Rick, Phil, take care. Have a lovely evening. Thank you for your time. Hopefully we'll do
Thanks,
this
guys.
again. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. Those that have stayed in from start to finish or jumped in at any point. Yeah, like we had a nice little discussion. This will be posted up again, a recorded copy that you'll be able to jump through. And yeah, that's me, Victor. And hopefully I'll see you again soon on Grid Hub. Oh wow, Gridiron Hub Live. I really should have practiced this, man. But yeah, thank you so much. Shout out to Steve and the team for giving me the platform, allowing me to get involved. And yeah, catch you lot next time. Yeah, I don't want to stop, so yeah, I'm just gonna keep talking. And yeah, see you lot when I see you, when I see you, when I see you. Thank you to everyone who's commented in the chat and got involved. Having trouble connecting indeed. And broadcast, man. Steve, what's going on with your stream, bruv? It's not letting me leave.